Hey, I'm Morgan,
I'm Chris. Welcome to the Midlife Mud.
where we promise to bring the real shit, all the grit, and pretty much zero clue about how to deal with this crazy phase of life.
And by the way, because this is all about feeling less alone, what we want most is to connect with you.
Absolutely. So take a few seconds and visit themidlifemud.com and join our community.
And you'll stay up to date on all the dirt.
And even better, become a part of the conversation.
We can't wait to see you there. All right, tighten those boots and let's get muddy.
Hello, hello. It's Friday.
Friday.
Well, for us, it's Friday. It's almost the weekend.
That's true. What are you going to do this weekend?
I think Matt and I are going to have a little date night tomorrow night. That'll be fun. What about you? Any plans?
Cooking meatballs. It's been a light week at work. It's interesting. I feel like a lost puppy.
Yeah.
Just the whole flow of the week. I'm going into the weekend from that perspective. And in some ways, it's really good because I have a little bit more energy than I normally might.
Yeah.
And I'm currently getting texts from my girlfriend, but they're not. They're from her 11-year-old, but from her phone.
Oh,
Yeah.
Anything exciting?
Hi, bestie.
That's a great way to start a Friday.
It really is. Sometimes it's just the simple things.
Speaking of besties, I had dinner last weekend with a friend who I don't get to see often enough, but we had one of those dinners that just kept going and going and going because we had so much to talk about,
Yeah.
you know? It's funny because I told her, I was like, we need to go someplace close to my house because I have to go home and go to bed. Like I don't want to be out late, all this kind of stuff. And we were sitting outside on the porch of the restaurant. So it basically closed and we were still sitting there because we didn't have to leave. We were there well past midnight,
Yeah.
which for me to stay up even that long is crazy. But I didn't even know it was midnight. We were just talk.
I think that I know the friend that you're talking about. And
Yeah.
it's so cool that the two of you are connecting like that. That's a friendship that has had many seasons over many, many years.
Oh, very many. Yeah, it is cool.
Yeah.
It's something that I really hold dear. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today is this whole idea of friendship in adulthood. Because I think it's really easy to make adulthood, the focus is more about who your partner is. You know, you have a family, you're focused really on those things and work. And friendships go from being one of like the top things in your life to literally the last, right?
Yes. I love how we're playing a little bit of trapeze from topic to topic. You know, last time we were talking about time and now we're talking about friendships. Making friends and building friendships takes time.
A lot of time.
A lot of time. I forget the number. I did quote a number in one of the podcasts, but it was like over 70 hours just to have a casual friend. And that's not like going to yoga class together. That's one-on-one, like intensive time talking and spending time.
So it makes sense that that's one of the things that actually goes to the wayside is because we're generally devoting our time to other things.
Right.
But what's interesting about it is we talk about connection all the time. And I saw this statistic the other day. It was actually like a graph that showed the people that you spend time with and how that graph changes. So they had one graph for your friends. And it's like the beginning of your life to the end of your life. And it's like really high at the beginning and then it just slopes down and just plateaus really low. And then, you know, like your spouse or your kids. So it gets you thinking about, oh, gosh.
That's interesting.
It was fascinating. I saved it. I'll send it to you because I just thought, wow, that really hits home. And we've probably all heard that one of the biggest predictors of longevity is community, even more so than having a healthy diet and exercise. So this whole idea that who you surround yourself with really matters. And that we're sort of in our current century, we are in this loneliness epidemic.
Wait, but we're supposed to be the most connected that we've ever been.
We're so connected.
I'm connected.
It's pseudo connection, right? Like it's not real connection.
Yeah. You and I talk about community a lot. And one of the focuses of this whole podcast project for us is around building community, which intersects with friendship somehow. When I think about connection, one of the words that I think about is belonging,
Mm-hmm.
right? And belonging fits in community to me, but it can also fit in friendship.
Yeah. I think the unique thing about friendships, like let's talk about that for a second. When you compare having a partner versus a friendship, I believe that you should be friends with your partner, right? There should be friendship there. But when you compare those two kinds of relationships, a significant other versus a friendship, what's the value of a friendship compared to having a partner for you?
Well, they're related. I think of a partner as all the things of a friend and then more. The partner is an additive, but the friend is the base
Yeah.
for me.
When I think about partners, having a significant other, you have this sort of common goal that you're weaving your lives together.
Yeah,
Whereas with a friend, you're sort of on your own track. Maybe those tracks are parallel, maybe they're not, but you're not living your lives woven together,
right.
which I think changes the flavor of the way that you connect.
It does, for sure.
I guess what I'm getting at is like, why is having friendships important in addition to having a partner? If having a partner is something that's important to you. Because it's really easy for us to go, no, I don't have time for that. I've got my significant other, I've got my family, I'm busy, so forget friendship. Like, why is friendship important?
The first word that comes to mind is diversity. Having a range of different people that you connect with and different ways that you connect, I think is important. And it's not to take away from the connection that you have with a partner.
Yeah.
And there's nuanceful things too, at least, and this is personal to me, right? There is a difference in connecting with men and connecting with women and connecting with people that are older in their lives and people that are younger in their lives. And there's just a lot of different experiences and flavors and that can be introduced and mingle together when you have more than one friend.
Yeah. For me, the difference between having a partner versus these friendships that sort of sit outside of your family circle, there's a perspective thing they can give me.
Yes.
And that I can give to them that is really valuable that I don't think we get with the people that we have woven our lives together with as tightly.
That's right. I mean, in a way, that's what I was saying when I said older people and younger people
Mm-hmm.
and men and women and like all of those are different perspectives.
Yeah. And also there's something too about even if it's just another woman my age,
Right.
for her to be sitting on the outside of my life instead of being enmeshed with it, she can see things maybe I can't.
Right.
And so that's also what I mean about having a perspective that's different because especially right now in midlife, we have our head down in the mud. We are really
Yeah.
in it. We are focused on doing all these things with our family and our work and career. And it's nice to have that sort of fresh, hey, come up for air for a second.
Right. I mean, I have friends that are around the same age as me and they don't have kids.
Mm-hmm.
And the exchange that goes on, at least my experience of that, is really powerful. And I think it goes both ways. I am reminded of things that maybe don't come to the forefront of my mind in talking with that person because their life experience is different and they're not balancing kids and all of those things. And then vice versa, my experience as a parent, I'm just going to call it makes life richer. And I think that is imparted on the other person too. So it's a fun back and forth.
Yeah, so there's something about that outside perspective that can be so valuable. Can we talk about, let's just get a general sense of how friendship changes.
Okay, so when I ask you, who was your best friend, your first best friend, like in childhood, what pops to mind? Who? I mean, you don't have to say the name, but you think of a person.
Yeah, I know exactly who I'm thinking of.
And so what was that relationship like?
Well, I think when I was little, it was just a matter of we spent a ton of time together. We were in school together. It's different now. In Mel Robbins' book, Let Them, she kind of gives you that picture of friendships and how when you're younger, you have all of this time built in. You're surrounded by people that are like your built-in friends.
Yeah.
So you're spending every day with these people that you've made friends with. It's easy to make friends because they're right there. And usually you go through school together, and then you go through college. And then she talks about the great scattering. You get out of college, you all go your separate ways, you get a job somewhere, and it's different. Like that's when there's this shift.
Yeah.
And so when you ask me about like what comes to mind when you think about your best friend from when you were little, I have memories of being at school. And that's the thing too, is we were all doing the same thing. We were all in the same classes together. We had the same sort of life. And that changes over time.
Yeah, I'm remembering, like, if I asked myself the same question, when we grew up, we had a very active neighborhood. There were a lot of kids that lived in our neighborhood. And I can remember putting on my really tall tube socks that almost went like up to my knee with like colored stripes across the top.
And your Nike belly shirt?
Yeah. I mean, the 70s they weren't over yet. Like they were still going a little bit. And I would go out into our backyard and jump the fence and cut through the neighbor that lived behind us and go down the street in the neighboring neighborhood. And there was a kid there that I was really good friends with. And we would play basketball all day, and we would go out and explore the woods and just get lost doing all that stuff. And of course, we were around the same age and we lived in the same neighborhood, and like there were tons of commonality.
And nothing but time.
Nothing but time, right? And so we would it wasn't hard to get to 80 hours or 250 hours. Like we got there quick.
Yeah, it was like within a week.
Yeah.
You're there.
You're done. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like being at school and sitting together at lunch and having the same classes. There was so much about our lives that was so the same. We were just like right there.
Yeah.
And I think then when you go into adulthood and you have your own life and you have your own different career, maybe you have kids, maybe you don't, maybe you're married, maybe you're not. That is when all of it gets to be like, wait, where did the friends go? And what am I supposed to do?
Well, one of the things that's coming to me is the question of community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And friends emerge from the communities that we're in. And when we're kids, that community is school and our neighborhood. And then it shifts to college, and then it shifts to work and family.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have kids, then it shifts to all of that stuff. Back to that chart, you can sort of see how that's driving us. And that is really putting in front of us the likelihood of making connections, right? Who we're going to make the connection with.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things coming up here. It's like one is once you're an adult, how do you make new friends? That is a whole different thing because you don't have the built-in structure to do that necessarily. And the other thing is how do you maintain and nurture the deeper friendships that are already there, right? Like those are two things to consider as an adult.
Yeah.
So let's talk about making new friends. We'll start there. And it doesn't have to be making new friends that are going to become your absolute best friend and know your deepest, darkest secrets. But what does that look like?
This is an opportune time for me to ponder this question because I am at this point where I'm a little bit playing on the fringes with the empty nest syndrome. So there's this transition point where all of a sudden I don't have the same community that I had before, like surrounded me that involves the kids, and I have more time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm left in this quandary of, okay, like, how do I make friends? And it's a little bit awkward sometimes.
It's like, way awkward.
I have this example. Like there's this person now that I felt this connection to. Like we had just a good level of relating points about life and life experience and different commonalities. And I thought, okay, like we have a seedling, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to put some water on it. But it's a little bit awkward because I find myself clumsily like, how do I do this? And like, if I text him and then he doesn't text me back, like, does that mean he doesn't want me to text him? Or like, if we're just texting and then, but we really, at some point, if we're going to be friends, like we need to get together and like, and then there's like, I don't want to disrespect him and his time's valuable and maybe I'm not like a priority in his time.
There's no like protocol.
There's no protocol.
Right? I mean, when you think about dating, you can kind of think about, okay, I'm at some point in the interaction, it's okay to say, okay, what are we doing here? You know, are we exclusive? Are we not? All of that. So it's sort of natural that at some point it's going to come up a discussion about the nature of your relationship, right? That doesn't happen with friendships as much.
Right.
It hasn't for me. And so there is a little bit of okay, do they like me? Do they not like me? Are they just being polite? Do we take this to the next level where we spend more time together? It feels, that's where that awkwardness I think comes in, is because there's no explicit conversation. And also there's no, like, you're lucky. You just said there's a seedling there. You found someone and that's just sort of naturally happened for you. What about if we're out there just looking, like, I want to have more friends? It's not like there's a online app that you can connect with. I don't know. Maybe people use like Tinder or something that like swipe right or left,
No.
Not that I would want to use that, but that's how people find people to date these days, I'm told. So how do you find these friends, first of all? You know? And then, how do you figure out how to navigate into more of a connection or a deeper connection?
One of the things is just time and creating the space. If you don't create space and time to develop friendships, it'll never happen. One of my best friends, he is the master of creating like these micro communities. He's just like, okay, you're coming over at 7 p.m. and bring this, this, and this. And we're going to be doing this activity. And it just works.
That's amazing.
Not only does he cultivate his own friendships,
Yeah.
he like cross-pollinates friendships. It's a masterful thing to watch.
Yeah. That's interesting. I have a friend like that also. She's very extroverted. And for me, as an introverted person, I do tend to gravitate towards people that are like that so that I can like...
They're like the wind and you're the little seed.
Yeah.
You're like, please blow me to a fertile soil.
Yeah. So there's an opportunity to sort of, for lack of a better word, network with friends of other friends sometimes, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, it's just creating those opportunities, and I think that the further we get into life and there's all of these other competing priorities that are probably more comfortable and easier to pour ourselves into.
Yeah.
Because like we've been talking about, it's a little bit of a quandary. Like, how am I supposed to go make a friend? Like, come on.
Who the hell has time for that?
I'd rather just go watch a show.
Yeah.
Or whatever,
Well, and what I'm hearing you say is like, create the opportunity, do something, right?
Yeah.
And I think that looks like, what is something that you like to do? What is something get out, go somewhere, do something that you like to do so that you might encounter people who like to do the same thing. That sort of shared experience, that can be the connecting point as a jumping off.
Yeah. So an example that I have of that is going back to my early 20s, I started mountain biking, and that is a very active community.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of the regions, at least in New England anyway, they have local mountain bike associations, which are groups of people that get together and ride. And they also go out and build and maintain trails.
Yeah.
And so there's a whole range of things that you can get involved in. And actually, the brief period of time that I was in Kentucky last year, I would go ride my mountain bike and I would meet people that were doing this. Again, communities. And, those are great places to kind of park and hang out and look for opportunities for people to connect with.
Yeah.
Because you're finding that common ground.
For someone like me who's probably less active, like I really enjoy sitting on my couch How can I make friends doing that?
Oh, Matt, I'm sorry.
It is incredibly awkward for me.
But you have made a lot of progress.
I have.
I want to recognize that. Like we were talking about last year, I think it was last year, you and I had a number of conversations in which you said something to the effect of, I really, really want to make friends. And I know it's hard for me to do that, but I'm just going to do it. And you did. You've taken some steps.
Well, and when you say taken some steps, the important thing is taking initiative.
Right.
I am not typically the initiator of anything when it comes to interacting with other people. I wait to be spoken to.
Right.
I wait to be asked to go to dinner. I wait. And so sitting on my couch waiting, I'm not going to make any new friends, right? And so, yes, there was a moment, I don't know, a year or two ago where I thought, well, I'm going to be really intentional about making new friends or nurturing the friendships I already have.
Right.
So that did look like me awkwardly, reaching out to a couple of people that again, there was a common interest. There was something that we did together. We volunteered at the farm with the horses and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, okay, there's something there, and I enjoy being around these people. Let's see if we can go to dinner.
So the horses are like your mountain biking.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're doing good.
Yeah. and so I did. I did the awkward thing. Now, I did it by text message. It was like, hey, so I was thinking.
I'm curious, like, did you actually put a few extra E's in the hay? Or
I probably spelled it Hay. Just kidding. I did not.
That would have been clever. Shit, if you would have sent me that, I would have been your friend.
Okay, but to your point, like it felt a little bit like asking people out on a date, It's so weird. It is so weird. But I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was something to the effect of, we should all go to dinner sometime. I'm really looking to make more friends. I just put it out there, which some people might have been like, oh my God, loser. But it was important for me to just name it so that I felt a little bit less awkward and, take it or leave it. But we did. We went out a couple of different times and had a really good time. We haven't continued that, but it was a great exercise for me to realize that I can be the one, to be the initiator.
Right.
And not only that, but in this stage of life, we have to be really intentional. We can't just wait until everybody else is not busy to reach out to us and say, hey, let's go out to dinner. Let's go mountain biking.
Yeah. Well, we can't, it's not fair to assign busyness to someone else. Like that's their choice to make.
Yeah.
And how they prioritize their time is their choice to make. Like I can't forecast that.
And I think it's important to extend grace to people. Like it can feel sometimes like, oh, that friend doesn't care about me, or I'm not important because they don't have time for me.
Right.
The reality is, like, there's not a lot of time.
Right.
I know that from my own experience, and I know that I care about the friends that I have. And so I hope that they don't take it personally if it takes me 2 days to respond to a text.
Right. I want to go back to your story about asking people to dinner. And one of the things that I heard there that I love, and I think it's worth calling out, is for you to do that was a level of vulnerability. You had to say, I am looking for friends and I'm asking for that. And that can feel a little bit awkward. And back to friendship at its deepest level, those people that are on the short list, so to speak, that's really what happens in those kinds of friendships is just, I'm going to call it the naked soul. It's like you are just who you are and they are who they are. And that's what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what those deep running friendships are, at least for me. And you don't start there, right? But
you don't, but you can set the tone.
And that's why I'm calling this out, because you making that reach, regardless of whether it developed or anything, it was setting a tone.
Yes.
And the tone was like, this is what I'm looking for. And whether they met you with that or not isn't the point. The point is that's the tone you set.
Yes. I am tired myself, personally, of these very surfacey sort of interactions that I have with other adults. These very like, oh, wine night at so-and-so's house, and we're going to have a conversation for 30 seconds about something really mundane and like surfacey. Like, I am just really, my time is important and valuable to me, much like everybody else's is to them. And I just
Yeah.
I don't fucking have time for that. If I'm going to spend time
Yeah.
outside of my busy life, day-to-day life, I want it
Yeah.
to be juicy. Like, I want it to be meaningful. And so those are the kinds of friendships that I want.
Well, and I think that the power of understanding that is that you can just get to the point.
Yeah.
Like, back to the idea that time is a valuable resource. So, like, if you're going to have a certain amount of time dedicated towards friendships, whether that's developing, fostering, rekindling, or whatever, like, make it valuable.
Yeah.
Show up.
And let's talk about something fucking real.
Right.
One of the other things that I've done, my cross-pollinator friend, she is one of these people that knows everybody in the world. Okay, everybody knows who this person is.
Right. I know who it is.
You know who it is. Everybody knows who this person is. And I actually told her, I said, listen, I really am in the market to engage in some friendships.
Yeah.
Because I had felt really isolated since quarantine. You know, I had noticed there had been a real drop off. And so I mentioned that to her back when I was being intentional about this. And so she's like, you know what? I am in a book club that you would probably love. And that was right up my alley, because these are people who like to read, and they like to read real books that have some interesting underlying theme that brings about some real conversation.
Yeah.
And so she said, and I looked at her and I was like, okay, wait, is this like you read the book and then you go and you party?
Because I don't do that.
And then you're hungover the next day? Because I don't want to do that. She's like, no. We actually talk about the book, and it's like an hour and a half and you're done and you go home. And I was like, this sounds too good to be true.
You mean I can still sit on the couch?
And so she invited me to go, and I've been doing it ever since. We meet once a month, and I love it. I love it because what it does is it allows me to be around these women who have different sorts of lives, you know, but we talk about something real. And even if I don't connect with these women outside of book club, that may change. I don't know. But as of right now, it's still pretty much confined to that. It is just a lovely experience. And I leave there almost every single time feeling like, wow, that was the best way to spend that hour and a half.
Yeah.
Like, it brings me life. So are there any things that you do right now to sort of foster new connections, make new friendships?
No.
That's not really on your radar as much?
Well, as I've kind of alluded to, I am straddling a couple of different worlds. And what it feels like is this: on a weekly basis, I'm by myself all week and I work. And, you know, I always have been someone who's pretty good at picking up the phone and maintaining connection.
You are good at that.
Yeah. So I still do that. I've always done that. It's not a particularly new thing. But in terms of like other things, I would like to get into the mountain biking. But the days are starting to get longer. So there's more light and there's more opportunity to do stuff after work right now at this time in the year. But then on the weekend, I'm really busy with my girlfriend and her kids. And, you know, we're doing stuff. So I'm kind of back into that life.
Right.
I'm going back and forth.
Yeah. Well, and you bring up a point there, and you sort of touched on it earlier. When you're in the life with your partner and her kids,
right,
and their friends' parents,
right,
you sort of have a little bit of a built-in, there's like a sweet spot in your kids' lives where you're hanging out with those parents a lot.
Right. And, you know, for us, my partner and her kids, we've actually gone on trips with parents of the kids' friends and spent a lot of time and done a lot of things. And that has been rewarding and fun. And there is this great level of commonality in the kids. But those friendships are different than the ones that are just sort of born from me showing up and saying, you know what, like I'm Chris Peterson and this is what I'm about. And the other person saying, I'm so-and-so and this is what I'm about. And then there being a connection. And to the point of the short list and these friends that are at the deepest level, I do think that if we're lucky in a lifetime, we have a couple of those, you know, and that doesn't discount the power of other friendships that are maybe not as deep at all.
Yeah.
I love those. But the common theme is putting yourself out there. And when you get to that intersection of the great scattering of the family life, right?
Yeah, like the empty nest.
Yeah. There's a moment where that takes on new light. At least it has for me. And that's a little bit of that picking up of what I remember from being a youth is like, I'm not showing up as a representation of my child or my partner's children, or I'm just me again.
Yeah.
Right? Who the
Who's
fuck is that? It's cool though. I like it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what you're talking about when you say, okay, what is it about these deeper friendships, your ride or dies?
Yeah.
What are the qualities that are showing up there that make it so deep and meaningful? It's authenticity. It's showing up as who you are.
Yes. In fact, when Jamie and I get together, his wife will be like, oh God, you guys are getting together. And she calls our friendship a bromance. But you know, the way that I translate that is it's complex. It's a complex relationship and it runs on many levels. And at the core of it, it really is just a lot of vulnerability. And I remember there was one particular moment years ago when we were having a conversation and he said something like, he just looked at me and I can't remember what we were talking about, but it was heavy. And he said, why do you it's like you just reach into the guts of it and just pull it out and put it on the table and say, we're going to talk about this.
Yeah.
And he's like, then I feel like I have to talk about it.
You know, I'm really curious, being a man, this whole idea of a bromance.
Yes.
Like, I think it's easier for women. Women can live in a little bit more of this vulnerable state. Like, it's more, quote, acceptable, right? How do you think that impacts men in friendships?
Yeah, I think that it can be really hard. It's not as well accepted for men to be physically affectionate, hug each other and just be close, and at least not in a lot of cultures, and I would include ours in that. I don't know. It does get a little bit more complicated. And that whole idea of the balance between masculinity and being vulnerable and more explicit about the emotional side of life and some of those other feelings.
Right.
And I would say, like, in my experience of what Jamie's wife calls a bromance, like it's the whole range, right? There's a lot of masculinity.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of the other stuff too.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're all just people. And
how did that happen, do you think?
Oh my God.
Like for other men out there that maybe want that but don't know, I'm just curious. Is that something you were even conscious of?
Well, when we first met, we hated each other.
Are you serious? I didn't know that.
Yeah, we did. There was like this competitive thing that went on. And then for whatever reason, we actually finally had a real conversation. Like we had just been posturing at each other, basically. And this is like 20-something-year-old.
Yeah, years and years ago.
And for whatever reason, we had an actual conversation and that was it. Like there was just a sync up almost immediately, at least in my experience. And that sort of connection just grew naturally. And I think there's just some level of, I don't know what to call it, chance or luck or
fate.
Yeah, if we're lucky, we encounter that sort of connection a couple times in a lifetime or hopefully more,
and hold on to it. What's also interesting too is, for example, Jamie, right? Jamie's someone who lives not right next to you. He is not someone that you see every day or
No.
talk to every day. For me, I've got a friend that is that way. And there's something really cool about being able to, whenever we do get together, and I'm curious if this is your experience with Jamie, whenever we do get together, it's like this instant reconnect, and we almost like download all the information
Yeah.
that we need to know to just get caught back up and then get back into the deeper stuff.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I do.
It's not just like, well, how are you and what are you up to and blah, blah, blah. We get to the meat of it.
Yeah, like the analogy that I think about is it's almost like the friendship goes into this deep freeze.
Yeah.
And then it's just like flash thawed.
Yeah.
When you get together. That connection has just somehow been put in a suspended state and then it reawakens.
Which I think is really cool to have that kind of connection.
It is. And there's a bit of that to me that's very mysterious. I can't really explain why that happens with some people. And the other thing that I think is really interesting if I think about like long-term connections with people. So there are, from that period in life before the first great scattering, college and the leaving of the family unit that we grew up in, there are two people that I still stay connected with. Not on a like really constant level, it's pretty distant. But when I talk with either one of them, it's almost like tapping into a certain layer of life. Like it almost takes me back a little bit to the layer when that friendship was more active. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like, I've heard this anecdote before that sometimes when you get together with old college buddies, you start feeling like you're acting like you're in college again. It's that sort of thing.
Yeah. Friends can sort of be snapshots of yourself in a
Yes.
weird way.
A version of yourself and or like the life that was surrounding you at that time and the feelings that were involved in that.
So how do we stay a good friend?
Well, I think part of being a good friend is, and this correlates with being vulnerable, but it's the ability to be present and really just show up and be there. And, the honest truth is what makes these deep friendships, what really drives them is like those tough moments when the person just sits with you or you sit with them.
Yeah.
And it's the deepest, most cathartic acceptance of the fact that we don't know what the fuck we're doing, but we're just doing it together.
That goes back to that vulnerability.
Yeah.
And that feeling safe enough with someone. Because when you're doing that, when you're showing up feeling safe and secure, I read this book called Platonic by Marissa Franco, which I'll link in the show notes. But she talks about how when you are not being self-protective, you aren't worried about defending yourself. You're not putting your time and energy into that.
Right.
Gives the space and the air for you to take care of the relationship itself.
Yes.
And that is where that depth and meaning is born.
And I love that you went a little further into that because that putting down of the armor or letting go of the self-protection is what allows the space to be present.
Yeah.
To really be present.
What's your micronutrients from this?
That it's important to dedicate some time to friendships and that showing up authentically is an important piece. It's also like a good way to be efficient about using that time is showing up authentically. And that rekindling a friendship and or maintaining a friendship and or developing a friendship includes spending intensive time and doing big things sometimes, but it doesn't always have to. And I think as we have this discussion, I'm reminded that those little investments of sending that photo of something that you both like or relate to or those things done over time, they just add up.
Yeah, it's the little things.
Yeah. What about you?
All of what you said, I agree. The thing I'm working on more, continuing to work on is this whole being the initiator, being proactive.
Yeah.
Because I'm just not great at that anyway, in a lot of areas of my life. But I have seen that even in doing the awkward thing, taking the awkward step, it's worth doing to spark something. And also, I kind of want to normalize just actually having a conversation with someone who I'm interested in actually having a deeper friendship with.
Right.
Like, I just think that could be beneficial.
Yeah.
I was listening to one of my favorite, Emily Vondi. She's on Instagram. She cracks me up. And I watched one of her stories on Instagram once. She was sitting in her car, and actually one of her kids was in her car seat asleep or something. So she was just
Right.
sitting in the car talking to the phone. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I went to my kids' carpool line, and like she had gone out for margaritas or something at some point with one of
Yeah.
these ladies." And she's like, "Oh my God, I found out that we have a mutual friend and such a da da da." She was so excited. She's like, "So we just had the greatest time." And I was just like, "Oh my gosh, is she feeling this the way that I'm feeling this?" I mean, it's just like, and she said, "So then I saw her standing outside the school at drop-off time, and I walked up to her, and she was like talking to the principal of the school or something. And I smacked her on the butt, just like as a
Yeah.
joke." And she's like, "And I immediately regretted it." Like, there was just like, we're not there yet. You know what I mean? And I just loved witnessing her inner dialogue about
my
this,
God.
because it is so much of like, I don't know, like what level are we, and what's okay
Right.
and what's not okay. And it just felt so real.
And the funny thing is, like, we talk about that a lot in romantic relationships, but that same sort of tension and confusion and insecurity shows up in all relationships.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
It just seems less accepted to talk about it, like in the friendship setting. I don't know why.
Yeah. So I guess that's part of what I'm saying is like, I want to normalize that a little bit.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying we got to put pressure or labels on things,
Well,
but like, what harm would it be to say, I really love hanging out with you. Like,
right.
I consider you a good friend.
So the phrase that keeps ringing in my head right now is, don't make a big deal about it. Just make the reach and see what happens.
Yeah. Doesn't have to be a big thing, but it can be hugely valuable
For sure.
to do it. And to hear it, to be on the receiving end of something like that. Wow. Like if someone said that to me and I wasn't necessarily expecting it, that would feel nice.
Right.
So I have some awkward texts to send.
Good. Make them funny. I'm happy to pre-review.
Oh, and if you want to be our friend, join our community.
At themidlifemud.com/join.
All right. Well, we will see you next time.
In the mud. Thanks for being with us in the mud today.
If you liked this episode, do us a huge favor and subscribe to the show. This is going to make sure you never miss an episode, and it's going to help us grow our muddy community, which would mean the world to us.
See you next time in the mud.